Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into article writing for IGCSE First Language English exam. Articles are one of the most common text types you will face. So let's break down exactly what examiners expect and how you can score top marks. Today we will consider form and structure of article. By the end of the video, you should feel confident approaching any article writing question in the exam. By the end of the session, you will know what an article is, what it is for informing or persuading the reader, how to match your tone to the audience, how to build a balanced argument covering different viewpoints, and how to structure your article clearly with strong introduction, body, and conclusion. We will also cover key persuasive techniques like catchy titles, rhetorical questions, and emotive language. And finally, how to conclude your article. Throughout, I will emphasize exam strategy, how to address bullet point prompts, stay on topic, and avoid common mistakes. You will learn to write in clear, semi formal style, the tone that Cambridge expects in an article. Now, the very first question: what is an article? It is a magazine or newspaper style piece that informs or persuades readers about a topic. Cambridge explains that articles give the reader information about a certain topic, bringing together and discussing different perspectives. Your perspective can be very different from mine. Over here, you will try to present a balanced argument in simple terms. An article typically presents both sides of an issue. For example, the pros and cons of technology. So readers can see multiple viewpoints. Always remember that exams aim write clearly and effectively with a wide range of vocabulary. A personal engaging voice is also encouraged, but keep this in mind: avoid overly casual slang or semi formal. In other words, semi formal friendly tone should be maintained. Now I'm going to show you an example question. This is an example question with this is I am going to use this question in my second video on article writing. I will employ this as a model text to illustrate the various techniques that I shall be teaching you today. So I'm going to read the question. Write a magazine article for young people. The audience is young people, of course, about how far they should keep up with the latest technology. The purpose is that you need to advise the young people about whether they should keep up with the latest technology or not. If they have to, then to what extent? Evaluate the ideas, views, and attitudes people have towards new technology. This will be given in both texts, so you have to evaluate both the texts first. Give your own views based on what you have read. It means after evaluation, you have to formulate an opinion. Now, base your article on what you have read in both texts, but be careful to use your own words. Of course, evaluation and opinion go hand in hand over here, but in your own words. Starting with purpose of an article. This means that what are you going to do in an article? Of course, the purpose is to inform and persuade. You are going to inform the reader about whatever you know about the topic based upon the text that you have already read, and then you are going to persuade the reader about your own view, according to your own views, not about your own views. It means that at the same time, you are going to gently persuade them to consider your perspective. For example, you might argue that keeping up with the technology can be both positive and negative. But you have to give evidence from both sides. Cambridge notes that an effective article plans for an impact. It's a very important thing that you need to hook the reader's interest, and the body should develop your key argument. And the conclusion should draw ideas together. Consider a strong opening line, maybe a rhetorical question or a surprising statement. This is very different from a speech writing, because in a speech writing you were supposed to greet the audience, introduce yourself, and then introduce the purpose. But over here you will start from the question, from the main point of the question. The main point over here is technology. So you are going to, and of course you have to give an advice whether you need to keep up, young people need to keep up with the technology, changing technology or not. So you are going to kind of reinforce the main idea. So you kind of give a surprising statement in the opening line. This is called a hook statement. This hook statement will engage the reader. When we are going to talk about the persuasive techniques to be used in article writing, I will give a small detail of it as well. Then the conclusion, then in the final paragraph, that is a concluding paragraph, you need to reinforce your main idea again, which is, of course, that whether you want to keep up with the technology or not, but a catch in article writing that you can easily go diplomatic in it. It means that you don't need to take a side like in speech. If a speech must show a bias, it means that they must show which side you are leaning towards. But in an article writing, you don't need to show where you are leaning. You can go for a diplomatic approach in this. Now, coming to the tone and audience. You need to think about tone and audience. This is the very first thing that you need to consider when you're looking at the question. For articles, basically are mostly for the general purpose, or they can be for specific readership. For example, you may be asked to write to an audience of school. So what will you do then? What You have to decide what tone works best. Cambridge advises most articles should have a semi friendly or formal tone. Semi friendly or formal tone, not in this in the hardest of its form, but in a very respectful and clearly engaging tone should be kept. If you know your readers are young people, it is okay to be a bit more relaxed or even humorous. If the audience is serious, then you need to keep your style formal and factual. Using we and you, of course, the inclusive pronouns, which is at the heart of every persuasive writing. Article writing, speech writing, letter writings are under the come under the bigger umbrella of persuasive writing, and in all these you have to use, by the way, inclusive pronouns of you, we, us. If I can give you an example in this regard, if I say that one can imagine in comparison to, that is a detached tone. But if I say, can you imagine doing this? But when using the word you, it immediately changes the tone into a conversational tone. So tone is a very important thing when it comes to article. The tone needs to be semi formal, it has to be conversational, and it needs to engage the reader. Because article, the first purpose, what is the purpose of the article? Purpose is to inform and persuade, and you cannot inform and persuade unless you are actually you have engaged the reader into kind of a conversation. So conversation can only be done if your tone is correct. So you have to adapt the tone according to your audience. Next comes the of course analysis discursive. You have to present a balanced argument over here. Your This balance is crucial. A strong article will explore different perspective on topic. For instance, if you are writing about technology, we have considered, by the way, this question earlier, and I'm going to dilate this question in my later video. You have to discuss both benefits and of course the disadvantages of it or drawbacks of it. So balanced arguments show depth of thought and keep readers engaged. Always tie your ideas back to the question in focus. Cambridge examiners look for content that stays on point and fully covers what is asked. Use each paragraph to develop one main idea. I'm not saying one main argument, but one main idea. For example, they can be related ideas about the positives of keeping up with the technology. You have to make one body paragraph of that, and you can the next paragraph can be about the drawbacks of keeping up with the technology. So and in each you have to kind of give a supporting argument, and you have to link each point obviously with the help of the transition. The second paragraph where you are giving the other side of the picture can start with however. So it's very important over here that you need to show the transition very clearly. On the other hand, can also signal your reader how to connect your ideas. Then you have to develop each point with examples or explanation where interest needs to be sustained. You can't give a one-sided opinion over here. Instead, you have to show how the reader can think critically or how you have thought critically. It means both pros and cons should be discussed in the article writing, and you can go for a balanced approach in that. Then finally then not finally rather then comes the structuring of the paragraphs in an argument. A clear structure by the way, makes your article easy to follow. And it's a very important thing. Cambridge guidance says that an article has three main parts, that is, introduction, body, and conclusion. In the introduction, hook the reader, maybe with a question or rhetorical question, by the way, or probably a hook statement. It means a statement about the topic in question, such as about technology. It can be a startling fact, or where you can briefly outline what you are about to discuss. The body consists of, by the way, 2 to 3 paragraphs, each focus on one side of an argument. For example, this is what I have told you earlier as well. The body can consist of 2 to 3 main paragraphs, each focus on one side of the argument. For example, one paragraph might explain why technology is wonderful. The next paragraph can talk about the contrast. Then you can use, of course, you have to link each point with one another, but keeping one idea in one paragraph will help you to not only build up your point but explain and link at the same time. You can use subheadings at the same time. These are important to bring in clarity. They can break up a long article and keep readers oriented about your thought, but don't overdo them. These are like mini titles, and you have to kind of use them to your advantage. Do not inundate your writing with this. Rather, this should be used sparingly and effectively, of course. And coherence throughout the structure is a very important element. Then we are going to talk about, of course, the key writing techniques. Key writing techniques are catchy headlines, strong openings, inclusive pronouns, rhetorical questions, emotive language, using anecdotes, and finally the transitions. So I'm going to break these down one by one in detail, and I'm going to show you how articles can be made persuasive and engaging through this. First of all, is the catchy title or headline. This is a very important thing. This tells a reader your topic and grabs their attention, like a newspaper headline, or like a news, or even a magazine article. When you flip through the pages of a magazine article, before flipping through the pages, what do? You look at the content where the headings are, where the titles are there. And if you always come to select a headline, a title which is catchy, which catches your attention. So this is the very first thing which is going to draw the reader's attention. Or you can use a rhetorical question in it, by the way. I'm going to, of course, show you in my next video a catchy title, which I'm going to use a question which I've shown you earlier about upkeeping with the latest technology. Then you have to craft a very, very strong opening. Opening is the most important thing and striking thing over here. It can be a bold statement, a rhetorical question, or an anecdote. For example, you could ask, "Ever wondered if your smartphone is making you happier or just more distracted?" This is a kind of a startling statement about technology, of course, because the topic you are going to discuss is keeping up with the technology. So, a bold statement or a question is going to grab the attention of the reader immediately. Or there is another example over here about the friendship. So are your online friendships doing you more harm than good? This can also be this is a rhetorical question, which I have explained over here. So giving a hook or a rhetorical question keeps your reader engaged. Strong openings are very important because openings of articles are very different from the openings of speech. In the speech, you go for greeting, and then you introduce your audience, and then you introduce yourself. But over here, there is a hook statement. Hook statement, it provides a framework of your topic or argument. It kind of sets the tone. It kind of shapes the article, what the reader is going to expect. What are you going to talk about? Then, of course, inclusive pronouns are at the heart of every persuasive writing technique. You, we, us are the inclusive pronouns. We are talked about it in our speech writing as well. These make the reader feel to be a part of the conversation. For instance, when you learn a new skill, you increase your confidence. If say that instead of this, if I would be saying that new skills acquisition increases confidence, that won't make any difference to the reader. But when you simply engage him into the conversation, saying that when you learn a new skill, you will increase your confidence, the audience will immediately feel that you are making it more personal. So simply that improves the tone and the overall relatability of the article, include the use of inclusive pronouns. We have already talked about the strong opening and catchy headline. Catchy headline is very important. Snappy title. You have to open strong using a hook statement about the main idea which is to be discussed in the article, or you can also talk about, of course, sorry, you give a rhetorical question, and finally the inclusive pronoun, which I have already told that it gives a catchy, sorry, conversational tone to the article. Then comes rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is a very important technique. In the first, if you use it in the first sentence, it is going to hook, act as a hook. I have written an example over here. What happens when? This engages you to think along with you. As the model did, so are your friendships doing you more harm than good? This is the previous model which I have provided you. It means that I have given you a kind of a model to base your writing on. I'm going to give you a very clear model in my next video, where I'm going to show you an article writing using, or an article using all these techniques. So, what you can do, you can engage the reader with the help of a rhetorical question. Whenever you feel that you want to re-engage him or making him think something else, use a rhetorical question. For example, you can say, "So, is technology really the answer to all your problems?" This can be a hook statement in the beginning for the question that I've shown you earlier. Then comes the emotive language. Emotive language is very powerful tool, by the way. Use vivid adjectives or phrases that make the reader feel something. Words like an unforgettable, thrilling, terrifying, heartbroken. These are very important words. They immediately add a drama, by the way. For factual credibility, include facts and for more not sorry not for factual credibility, you're already using the facts and logic which is given in the text to which is given in the contrasting text which you are writing your base, you have to base your writing on. You can get, by the way, logic from over there. But another persuasive technique is the use of anecdote. Anecdotes are often used in an article to help them make more to help make the complex topics, like for example technology, of course, that whether you should keep up with technology or more or not, it makes it more relatable if you can kind of tell a very very small anecdote, a very very small amusing or interesting story, but it has to be a very short story, by the way, about a real incident or a person. It will help the reader to demonstrate through example how you are feeling and how in which direction do you want to take him, and it will make him feel the realism of the logic that you are presenting. I'm of course going to show you the use of anecdote in my example in my next video. Then comes the use of transition. Use of transition is of course is at the heart of every writing. You have to be your writing has to be focused, your ideas have to connect smoothly. For this you have to use transition state phrases at the start of the paragraph, in the middle of the paragraph, or whenever you're connecting two ideas. For example, by contrast, likewise, in addition. For example, starting a paragraph with however signals a new contrasting point. So when you are showing prose or your lean of your article is more towards the prose, or there is no lean at all, still you can introduce the other side of the picture with the use of the word however, on the other hand. And then finally, the vocabulary. Vocabulary is this is a language paper. Examiner is looking for your vocabulary, the variety of it, of course. So you have to mix short, punchy sentences with longer, descriptive ones to keep the rhythm interesting. Avoid repeating the same words. It's like a sin. Repeating the same word in the same paragraph in the same sentence, that is too much. So don't you do it. You have to use synonyms for that. And finally, the conclusion. Your final paragraph should tie everything together. Sum up your main argument and leave the reader with a final thought or call to action. You could end with another rhetorical question. This is a very, by the way, very important technique that you can end with a rhetorical question. It means that you are kind of leaving the thought process to the reader. This can be easily done in in case of an article writing, because article writing is best written when you are diplomatic in your approach. It means that you are showing both sides of the picture and you're kind of leaving it to the reader to think. Or you can use a strong statement. For example, ultimately only you can decide how to balance technology with real life. This can be used as well. So the key is clarity and, of course, and closure. So the reader feels the article has reached a satisfying end. This is a very important thing. Then finally, the summary. Let's recap the main points and exam strategies. First, always read the question carefully. Highlight the purpose and on the audience. This is something which I have been telling you repeatedly. This will help you to develop the correct tone. Plan your answer so that each bullet point is addressed. However, don't just copy facts. Develop them with your own ideas and explanations. In fact, examiners advise do not just repeat details. You need to develop your ideas to demonstrate understanding. In my next video, I will show how a single idea is developed, or a few ideas are developed to in the form of an article. And then you have to follow a very strict structure. The tips we have already covered. You need to have strong title, clear opening, and in the opening paragraph, you need to use a hook or the rhetorical question. And you have to keep the reader engaged throughout. For the engaging techniques, you have to use all the persuasive devices. You will be, if you use all these persuasive techniques, you will be well on your way to the high scoring article in the IGCSE exam. Lastly, don't forget to use rhetorical question, inclusive pronoun, emotive language, and anecdote. Good luck and keep practicing these skills. Thank you for being with me.